Hi kids, welcome back to my channel, and I know I'm not posted for the last 2 months. I'm going to continue with the female genital tract only, and we will be starting with the classification. I felt like in the last video I started discussing benign endometrium. Before that I talked about the classification. I just wanted to talk about classification in a little bit more detailed. Sometimes we feel that we don't encounter these entities that usually, so we're not going to read them. But I feel like that's precisely the reason we have to read about the classification in a little bit more detail, and that's why this video is mostly about classification. If I still have the willpower, then I will make sure that I continue with the topic of endometrium, and we will be heading towards the malignant part of the endometrium. That will be the next video. Right, this is the pretty obvious topic from the last video, which gathered some idea about the benign endometrium, that I wanted to do this first. So when you open this book, this is the 5th edition, this is the latest edition. So we have the ovary, the peritoneum, the fallopian tube, broad ligaments, and any other uterine ligaments, uterus itself, GTDs, cervix, vagina, vulva. There are some neuroendocrine neoplasias of the GIT, hematolymphoid, mesenchymal tumors, or melanocytic lesions of the genital tract. So all of these I will not be discussing. Okay, these I will not be discussing. Even broad ligaments I'm not going to discuss. I'm going to discuss these. And these are the ones you have to be really familiar with, right? So starting with the most important topic, the classification of the tumors of the ovary. So first we have the epithelial tumors. So we have serous, we have mucinous, we have endometrioid, we have clear cell, we have seromucinous, we have Brenner tumors, and we have others. Let's see one by one. Of course, we have mesenchymal, mixed epithelial mesenchymal, we have sex cord stromal, germ cells, and miscellaneous, and tumor-like lesions and mets. We'll discuss all the names of this. This video is about the names of the entities that exist in that particular classification for that organ, right? So let's say for serous, let me delete this. Okay. So for serous, you have this. First is the serous cystadenoma. So it could be papilloma, it could be adenofibroma, or it could be cystadenofibroma, depending on the morphology. And then you have the borderline tumor, and that also has another variant, which is a micropapillary variant. And then you have the serous carcinoma, non-invasive, low grade. And then you have low grade serous carcinoma or high grade serous carcinoma. Next, you have the mucinous cystadenoma, adenofibroma, much like serous. In all the epithelial tumors, you'll see this grading of almost sort, where this first is this adenomas, fibromas, is this borderline entities, and then we have the adenocarcinoma of that type. Just like serous, and same for the mucinous. Endometrioid cystadenoma, endometrioid adenofibroma, and again borderline tumor, and then endometrial adenocarcinoma. Now, seromucinous carcinoma in this classification, although it might not look like it is the latest classification, but in this classification, they had introduced seromucinous carcinoma as to be a subtype of the endometrioid adenocarcinoma, even though we have seromucinous tumors separately. So this was the change, okay? And then we have seromucinous, cystadenoma, and adenofibroma, and borderline, because carcinoma was considered to be in this classification, in the latest classification, which was about 5 years ago. It was considered that it's subtype of the endometrioid. Then you have the clear cell tumors, again cystadenoma, cystadenofibroma, borderline, and the adenocarcinoma. Same for Brenner's tumors, NOS, borderline, and okay. Other carcinomas, mesonephric like adenocarcinoma, undifferentiated, dedifferentiated carcinosarcoma, or mixed cell carcinoma. And now, because it is ovary, you can still have mesenchymal tumors like endometrioid stromal sarcoma, low grade, high grade, leiomyoma, leiomyosarcoma, smooth muscle tumors, myxoma, and of course, mixed epithelial mesenchymal tumors. But this is something that you have to pay attention to, which is the sex cord stromal tumors. They can be pure stromals, pure sex cord, or mixed sex cord stromal tumors. So in these, we have fibromas and thicomas and Leydig cell tumors, right? So you have fibromas, cellofibroma, thicoma, luteinized, or sclerosing stromal tumor, microcystic stromal tumor, signet ring. And then you have the Leydig cell tumor and the steroid cell tumor, and also fibrosarcoma. Okay, and then sex cord tumors, you have the adult granulosa cell tumor of the ovary, granulosa cell tumor juvenile, Sertoli cell tumor, or sex cord tumor with annular tubules. That is the one which comes here under this sex cord tumor classification. That if it is mixed, then these are all basically subtypes of the Sertoli cladic cell tumor. So both stromal component and the sex cord component are combined in this, right? Sertoli is the sex cord component, and Leydig is the stromal component, the stroma of the cell, the stroma of the ovary. So again, we have NOS, well differentiated, moderately differentiated, poorly differentiated, retiform, or then you just sex cord tumor, and a gyandroblastoma also exists under the mixed cord subtype. Germ cell tumors, these are again very important names that you just have to remember. You have the teratoma, which can be benign or immature teratoma, which has the malignant potential. You have dysderminoma, you have Leukocytic tumor, you have embryonal carcinoma, and you have choriocarcinoma. And of course, you can have mixed germ cell tumor. If you can remember, just tell me which is, if you can like, let me know if in the comment section below, if you know which is the most common combinations of germ cell tumors, and out of all of these, which teratoma, dysdermina, Leukocytic tumor, embryocarcinoma, choriocarcinoma, which is the one that always occurs, right? Which is in whenever there is a mixed germ cell tumor, one of these will always be as not always, but most commonly will be there. Then you have the monodermal teratomas or somatic type, which arise from the dermoid cyst. So you have the stroma ovariae, which can be annulus or malignant, and you have the stromal carcinoid or teratoma with malignant transformations, cystic teratoma NOS. And then you have the germ cell sex cord stromal tumor, gonadoblastoma, which can be dissecting or undifferentiated tissue. And there are other parts, little parts that you have in your ovary can also have these tumors. Now, these are tumor-like lesions, follicle cyst that you will. So these in a benign ovary, you can encounter these findings like a follicle cyst, a corpus luteum cyst, luteinized cyst, hyperactive luteolus, pregnancy luteoma, stromal hyperplasia, hypertrichosis, fibromatosis, Leydig cell hyperplasia, and of course, you can have the metastasis. Next is the fallopian tube. So because we know that stick, if you remember, if you've read about serous carcinomas, you know that there is a is from serous tubal endothelial carcinoma. So we know because that is the lining of fallopian tube. So we only have the serous type. So serous adenofibroma and borderline and carcinoma. And endometrioid adenocarcinoma can also occur along with carcinosarcoma, but these are the main entities here. Then tube-like, these are benign things that you can see in everyday ovary. Paratubal cysts are very common. Tubular hyperplasia, tubovarian abscess, salpingitis ischemica, nodosa, metaplastic papillary lesion, placenta-site nodule, mucinous metaplasia, endosalpingiosis, and then of course mixed tumors and germ cell tumors can also occur. Then you have a very important classification for our uterus body, the corpus. So we'll start with the endometrium and then we'll reach the myometrium. All right. Let's start with endometrium, epithelial tumors. This will be probably the next video that I'll be making on this topic. So endometrial hyperplasia without atypia and atypical hyperplasia of the endometrium, and then NOS, which carcinoma NOS. So older classification was type 1 endometrial carcinoma and type 2 carcinoma, and you also have to remember that also. It's not like just because we have a molecular classification, poly and mismatched pair deficient or P53 and NSP type, that you'll forget that. So you have to remember the older classification and the new molecular classification of the endometrioid adenocarcinoma of the uterus. Then you can have serous. Now, it's just because it is endometrium doesn't mean you'll have only endometrioid carcinomas. You can also have serous, you can have clear cell, you can have undifferentiated, mixed cell, mesonephric, even SCCs, mucinous carcinomas, mesonephric, or carcinosarcomas. And you can have tumor-like lesions, which I've already discussed in the previous video, endometrial polyp, endometrial metaplasia, or area-stellar reaction. All right. Then the mesenchymal tumors, you already know leiomyoma and all of its subtypes. Lipoleiomyoma, apoplectic, hydropic, dissecting, cellular, myxoid, epithelioid, symplastic, leiomatosis, or intravenous leiomatosis also can occur. And then, of course, you have the uncertain malignant potential. There are few entities. And then you have the leiomyosarcoma, which can be spindle, epithelioid, or myxoid type. In myometrium only, you can have these endometrial stromal nodules, but you have to, when we discuss this entity, then we know the diagnostic criteria. So it is an endometrial stromal nodule, and it can be low grade, high grade, but it can also become a sarcoma. You can have picomas, perivascular epithelial cell tumors also in uterus, benign and can be malignant, or IMFT can also occur. And you can have mixed epithelial mesenchymal tumors. This occurs in all the parts of FGT. And you can have the miscellaneous tumors also, which includes neuroendothelioma tumors as well as some germ cell tumors. Now, this is another topic altogether, which is the WHO classification of just the gestational trophoblastic diseases. If again I continue with the willpower that I have today, I will surely make a video on this someday as well. Let me know if you find any particular topic more disturbing, more not disturbing, but more difficult than the others. Then I will make sure to make the video on that first. Okay, so GTDs, so there's tumor-like lesions, which is so all of these have short forms also. So tumor-like lesions is exaggerated placental site erection or placental site nodule. All you have to remember is, so it can be either erection or a nodule. It is tumor-like lesion. And of course, you can non-molar villus erection. And then you have the molar pregnancies, which gives partial mole, complete mole, invasive mole. Partial mole, complete mole, H mole, proper invasive mole. And then you have the GTT neoplasms. So you have the trophoblastic tumors, placental site tumors. So remember, placental site, we had exaggerated reaction, placental site nodule, and now we have the placental site trophoblastic tumor and trophoblastic epithelial tumor. And then you have choriocarcinoma annulus or choriocarcinoma combined with other germ cell tumors. Now, cervix. Cervix, vagina, and vulva, almost because of their morphology being similar of the squamous epithelium, KSSE, characteristic of squamous epithelium, their tumor classifications are more or less similar. But we're going to discuss uterus and cervix or vagina in detail, the classification. So we have squamous epithelial tumors. So you'll start with metaplasia, which is basically normal. You can have atrophy, you can have condyloma acuminatum, which is the problems are starting, or LCL, which is corresponding to grade 1 epithelial neoplasia, and you have HCL, which corresponds to grade 2 or grade 3. And then after that, we have the SCC, which can be HPV associated, which will be HPV independent. So the rate of, in the next few decades, they're saying the rate of cervical cancer might be coming low, but again, because of HPV vaccines that are being given, I hope everybody who is under the age of 25 has received HPV vaccine. And then HPV association, HPV independent, and NOS. And of course, it also has the glandular component. So we can have endocervical polyp. Very commonly, you can see these entities. Mullanian papilloma, Nabothian cyst, almost every uterus that you cut, you might see internal clusters, microglandular hyperplasia, lobular endocervical glandular hyperplasias, and different types of mesonephric reactions, areastal reaction, endocervicosis, and tuberous metaplasia, ectopic prostate tissue, and the entity that you have is adenocarcinoma, which malignant is in situ HPV associated or in situ HPV independent. And then you have the mixed tumors. Of course, in all the FGT, you'll have the mixed tumors and these germ cell tumors. Similarly, like I said, in vagina and vulva, almost similar pattern of entities you will see, which is condyloma accumulatum, some papillomas and eutrophy, and then LCL, HCL, and SCCs, which are HPV and HPV independent or in the associated, and some other benign entities as well. And then you can, of course, have the glandular component also has its own entities and mixed tumors as well as germ cell tumors.